As dusk fell over Millbrook, Jordan Carter walked home from school, his headphones playing soft hip-hop music. He remained vigilant, a habit instilled in him by his father, Captain Marcus Carter, a Navy SEAL commander. This small town, nestled between hills, had once been peaceful, but now it was a hunting ground for corrupt police officers. Suddenly, the headlights of a green and white Dodge Charger from the Millbrook Police Department flashed behind him. Officer James Blake, notorious for his brutality, stepped out, flanked by two other officers. Their eyes scanned Jordan, sizing him up. "Stop right there, kid." Blake's deep voice cut through the evening air. Jordan took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Is something wrong, Officer Blake?" he asked, confusion in his voice. Blake sneered. "I saw you acting suspiciously." Jordan clenched his fists. "Suspicious? I'm just walking home from school." Blake stepped closer, malice twisting his features. "There have been thefts around here. I think I have the right to detain you." Jordan recognized the game. The cops in Millbrook always found a way to arrest someone, especially young black men. "I haven't done anything wrong." "Resisting arrest, are you?" Blake taunted, his baton slamming into his palm. "I want to call my mom or my lawyer," Jordan said, his voice steady despite the fear rising within him. Blake's smile vanished. "You've made a big mistake." A heavy punch landed in Jordan's stomach, forcing the air from his lungs. "Act tough with me, huh?" Blake sneered as Jordan doubled over, struggling to regain his breath. The two other officers yanked him upright, twisting his arms behind him and cuffing him. "You're being arrested for disturbing the peace and resisting arrest," Blake said, leaning in close, his voice low and threatening. With a sharp shove, Jordan was sent crashing into the patrol car door, the cold metal biting into his skin. As the door slammed shut, he felt the weight of despair settle over him. Each streetlight that passed by outside felt like a flicker of hope being extinguished. Once inside the holding cell, the cold air bit into him, but it was the icy stare of Officer Blake that truly terrified. "You have one call," Blake said, his voice dripping. "Stay." Without hesitation, Jordan picked up the phone and dialed the familiar number. After 3 rings, a deep voice answered, calm yet commanding. "Dad," Jordan gasped, taking a deep breath. "I need you right now." On the other end, Marcus Carter felt his heart race as he listened to his son's voice. The weight of those words hung in the air, thick with tension. "Tell me exactly what's going on," Marcus urged, his voice steady but filled with concern. As Jordan explained the situation, Marcus's grip on the phone tightened, his eyes narrowing. "Stay calm, okay? I'm handling this." "What are you going to do?" Jordan asked, a mix of fear and curiosity in his tone. "I'm going to teach these cops a lesson they'll never forget." The call ended, leaving Marcus with a burning rage he had never felt before. This wasn't just another mission. This was his family. He had fought countless battles against the world's most dangerous enemies, but now he was ready to confront the corrupt system threatening his son. As he sat in the dark room, the glow of his control screen illuminated his determined face, and he began to strategize. A SEAL doesn't act on emotions, they act on strategy. He wouldn't storm into Millbrook demanding justice. That would be too simple, too merciful. Instead, he would dismantle them from within. Marcus Carter's mind raced as he hung up the phone. He took a moment to breathe deeply, grounding himself in the chaos that had just unfolded. His son was in trouble, and the thought ignited a fire within him. He knew that the corrupt police officers in Millbrook thought they could act with impunity, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. As he sat at his computer, Marcus recalled the countless missions he had undertaken as a Navy SEAL, each one requiring precision and strategy. This situation was no different. He needed to gather intelligence, identify the players involved, and find a way to turn the tide in his son's favor. He began by accessing secure military databases, quickly pulling up records on Officer James Blake and the entire Millbrook police force. What he uncovered made his blood boil. Blake's history was littered with complaints of police brutality, 8 in total, all dismissed. There were records of 3 missing black individuals who had been interrogated by Blake, their fates unknown. It was clear that Blake wasn't just a bad cop. He was part of a larger web of corruption that extended throughout the department. With each piece of information, Marcus's focus sharpened. These weren't mere officers. They were a gang in uniforms, operating under the guise of law enforcement. He was determined to expose them. He wouldn't call the FBI directly. Instead, he reached out to someone with the power to take down the entire corrupt system. After dialing a series of encrypted numbers, a familiar voice answered. "Who's this?" "It's Marcus Carter." "I need a favor," he replied, his tone steady and commanding. There was a pause on the other end. Then the voice responded. "Long time no hear. What kind of favor?" "It's a dirty police force running a small town. I need the FBI to look into them." "You want me to point the FBI at a small town?" "That's a bit much, Carter." "They just took my son," Marcus said, his voice low and filled with urgency. The silence stretched, and then the voice said, "I'll arrange a call for tomorrow morning." "Anything else?" Marcus glanced at the documents on his screen, his resolve hardening. "I want them to be afraid." The next morning, as James Blake arrived at the police department, he felt unusually confident, still basking in the satisfaction of having exerted his power over Jordan the night before. But that confidence quickly shattered when he opened his email to find a message from the U.S. Department of Justice. It was an urgent request regarding Jordan's arrest, indicating that the FBI would be investigating. "What the hell?" Blake muttered, panic creeping in as he tried to maintain his composure. Before he could gather his thoughts, his desk phone rang. "James Blake," he answered, irritation evident in his voice. "This is Agent David Monroe with the FBI. We need you to provide a full report on the illegal detention of a citizen last night," the agent said, his tone cold and demanding. Blake's heart raced as he realized the gravity of the situation. "I don't know what you're talking about, Agent. We did everything by the book." "Let's hope so," Monroe replied. "Because if not, we'll be conducting a thorough investigation into the Millbrook Police Department." As the call ended, Blake felt a chill run down his spine. He had always been the one in control, but now he was being hunted. Meanwhile, Jordan sat in the holding cell, processing the events of the last few hours. When he was finally called out, he was met with disdain from the officer who had arrested him. "You're lucky, kid. Someone up top wants you out of here." Jordan said nothing, holding on to his pride as he walked out of the police station. When he spotted his father waiting by a black Jeep, their eyes met in a moment of silent understanding. As they drove home, Marcus's voice broke the tension. "What did you see at the police station?" "Corruption," Jordan replied, his voice steady. "They're not afraid of being exposed because they think no one will challenge them." Marcus nodded, a cold smile playing on his lips. "They've forgotten one thing." Jordan turned to look at his father, curious. "To be a predator, they must ensure that no one is hunting them," Marcus said, his tone sharp and filled with determination. The atmosphere in the Jeep was thick with unspoken resolve. Millbrook had declared war, and this time they would regret underestimating the Carter family. In the following days, Marcus and Jordan Carter delved deeper into the corruption that plagued Millbrook. They met with small business owners, oppressed citizens, and families who had lost loved ones, each sharing harrowing stories that echoed the same theme: a police force that extorted money and terrorized the community. "Every shop owner has a story," Marcus said as they sat together at the kitchen table reviewing notes. "They're forced to pay protection fees. If they refuse, their businesses suffer accidents or they face harsh inspections. If they resist too much, they or their loved ones are targeted." Jordan listened intently, his heart heavy with the weight of what he was learning. It's not just about the businesses closing. People are disappearing down. A teacher vanished after trying to sue the police for wrongful detention. A postal worker who had evidence of their shady dealings just disappeared, and no one talks about it. Marcus's expression hardened. It's a system designed to instill fear. They rely on silence to maintain control. As they gathered evidence, Jordan began to channel his frustration into action. He knew he had to document the injustices occurring around him. He had learned from his father the importance of strategy, and now it was time to act. He decided to use technology to his advantage. With a small GoPro hidden in his jacket, Jordan started recording everything he could. He captured footage of police officers entering bars controlled by local gangs, laughing and socializing as if they were friends. He filmed officers issuing unreasonable fines to small businesses, ensuring their closure, and documented the arrest of an innocent man who couldn't afford to bribe the cops. Each video was carefully edited, timestamped, and uploaded to an anonymous YouTube channel. Within 24 hours, the clips began to spread like wildfire, reaching the residents of Millbrook who had previously been too afraid to speak out. Jordan's recordings ignited a spark of courage in the community. As the videos circulated, people who had once remained silent began to find their voices. They shared their experiences, and a movement started to take shape. Meanwhile, Blake felt the pressure mounting. He was no longer the untouchable officer in charge. The FBI's involvement had rattled him, and Jordan's videos only intensified his anxiety. He convened a meeting with his most loyal officers, desperate to regain control. "I want to send a message," Blake said, his voice cold and determined. "We need to show them that they can't challenge us." As the officers prepared to intimidate the Carters, Marcus was already one step ahead. He had anticipated their next move and fortified their home with a military-grade security system. On the night of the planned attack, when 3 officers dressed in plain clothes approached the Carter residence, they were met with an unexpected ambush. Marcus, alert and ready, sprang into action. The moment they stepped out of their car, he moved like a shadow, taking them down swiftly and efficiently. "Next time," Marcus said, standing over the defeated officers, "I won't be so merciful." He then called Jordan, instructing him to turn on the camera and record everything. Jordan activated the camera remotely, capturing the scene as his father subdued the corrupt officers. This footage would serve as undeniable evidence of the police force's brutality and corruption, ready to be shared with the world. As dawn broke, the atmosphere in Millbrook shifted. The Carters were determined to expose the truth, and with each passing moment, the community began to rise against the oppressive forces that had held them down for too long. The fight for justice was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever came next. As the days passed, the momentum in Millbrook continued to build. Jordan Carter became more than just a student. He was now a key figure in the fight against corruption. With his father's guidance and the evidence he had gathered, he was ready to take action. Jordan's recordings gained traction, capturing the attention of local media and stirring a sense of urgency in the community. People who had once lived in fear began to speak out, sharing their own stories of police harassment and brutality. The movement was gaining strength, and Jordan was determined to keep it going. "Dad, we need to organize a community meeting," Jordan suggested one evening. "People are ready to stand up, but they need a way to channel their anger and frustration. We can't let this momentum die." Marcus nodded, impressed by his son's initiative. "You're right. We can't just expose the problem. We need to empower the community to demand change." They scheduled the meeting at a local community center, inviting residents to come and share their experiences. As the day approached, Jordan felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Would people show up? Would they be willing to speak out? On the night of the meeting, the room was packed with concerned citizens. As Jordan stood at the front, he looked out at the faces staring back at him, faces filled with hope, fear, and determination. He took a deep breath and began to speak. "I'm not a hero," he said, his voice steady but passionate. "I'm just a kid who doesn't want to live in fear anymore. What happened to me could happen to anyone, and it has. But we have the power to change this." The crowd listened intently, and as he shared his own story, he encouraged others to step forward and share theirs. One by one, residents began to speak up, recounting their experiences with the police. The air in the room shifted from fear to solidarity, as people realized they were not alone in their struggles. After the meeting, the sense of camaraderie filled the room. Neighborhoods that had been divided by fear and distrust were now coming together, united by a common goal. Jordan felt a surge of hope as he watched people exchange contact information, forming alliances to support each other. Meanwhile, Blake was becoming increasingly desperate. The pressure from the community and the impending investigation by the FBI left him feeling cornered. He knew he had to act quickly to regain control. As rumors of the community meeting spread, Blake convened a secret meeting with his most trusted officers. "We can't let this continue," he said, his voice low and tense. "We need to send a message to those who dare to challenge us." He ordered his officers to intimidate the Carters, to remind them of the consequences of their actions. But unbeknownst to Blake, Marcus had anticipated this move as well. The security system he had installed not only protected their home, but also ensured that they were always one step ahead. That night, as the officers approached the Carter residence, Marcus was ready. He had trained Jordan to stay alert and prepared, and together they set a trap. When the officers arrived, they found themselves outmatched and outsmarted. In the struggle that ensued, Marcus and Jordan worked seamlessly, demonstrating the skills they had honed together. As the officers were subdued, Jordan activated his camera, capturing the entire encounter. This footage would serve as further proof of the police's tactics and their disregard for justice. The message was clear. Millbrook was no longer a town where the police could act with impunity. The Carters were not just fighting for themselves, they were fighting for everyone who had suffered under the weight of oppression. With each passing day, their resolve grew stronger, and the fight for justice became a movement that could no longer be ignored. The tension in Millbrook reached a boiling point as news of the community's resistance spread. Jordan Carter's footage had gone viral, capturing the attention of not just local media, but national outlets as well. Headlines blared about the corruption within the police force, and the stories of citizens began to flood social media. People were outraged, and the community was waking up from years of fear. As the movement gained momentum, a public rally was organized to demand justice and accountability from the Millbrook Police Department. Jordan took charge of the event, working tirelessly to coordinate with local activists and community leaders. He understood that this was a crucial moment, one that could either galvanize the town or lead to further repression. On the day of the rally, the atmosphere buzzed with energy. Hundreds of residents gathered at the town square, holding signs and chanting for justice. Jordan stood at the front, flanked by his father, Marcus, who watched proudly as his son took the stage. "Today, we stand together as a community," Jordan shouted into the microphone, his voice ringing out over the crowd. "We refuse to be silenced any longer. We demand justice for those who have suffered at the hands of a corrupt system." The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices rising in solidarity. Jordan felt the weight of their support, fueling his passion. He shared stories of those who had been wronged, highlighting the pain and suffering that had been ignored for far too long. As the rally continued, community members spoke out about their experiences, echoing Jordan's call for change. One by one, they stepped up to the microphone, recounting their encounters with the police, the harassment, the fear, and the loss of loved ones. Each story added to the collective outrage, transforming individual pain into a unified demand for justice. Meanwhile, Blake monitored the rally from afar, his frustration boiling over. He couldn't believe how quickly the tide had turned against him. The police had always been the enforcers, but now they were the ones being challenged. He knew he had to act fast to regain control of the narrative. In a desperate attempt to intimidate the crowd and undermine their resolve, Blake ordered a heavy police presence at the rally. Officers in riot gear stood at the perimeter, ready to suppress any dissent. Their presence, however, only fueled the anger of the community. As the speeches continued, the atmosphere shifted. People began to chant, "No justice, no peace." The energy was palpable, and the crowd felt invincible. They weren't just fighting for themselves anymore. They were fighting for their neighbors, their families, and their future. Jordan took a deep breath, knowing this was the moment to push for change. "We will not back down," he declared, raising his fist. "We will hold those in power accountable. We will demand a new police force that serves and protects all citizens, not just the privileged few." The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers echoing through the square. The energy was electric, and Jordan could feel the momentum building. This was more than just a rally. It was the birth of a movement that would refuse to be silenced. As night fell, the rally concluded with a powerful message of unity and hope. Jordan looked out over the crowd, filled with pride and determination. The fight for justice had only just begun, but together they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The community had found its voice, and they were not going to let it be taken away again. As the sun rose over Millbrook, a new day dawned for the community. The rally had ignited a fire within the town, inspiring residents to unite in their quest for justice. Jordan Carter stood at the forefront, more determined than ever to see real change take root. He knew the fight wasn't over. It was only just beginning. In the days following the rally, the momentum continued to build. Community members banded together to form a coalition focused on holding the police accountable. They organized meetings to discuss strategies for reform, and Jordan found himself leading discussions on the importance of transparency and community oversight in law enforcement. One evening, as they gathered in a local church, Jordan addressed the group, emphasizing the need for lasting change. "We can't just expose the corruption," he said, his voice steady. "We need to ensure that our new police force reflects the values of our community: integrity, respect, and accountability. We must be vigilant and involved." The room buzzed with agreement. Residents shared ideas about implementing civilian review boards, requiring body cameras for all officers, and establishing community policing initiatives. It was a collaborative effort, and Jordan felt a sense of purpose as he watched his neighbors rally around the cause. Meanwhile, the fallout from the rally was evident within the police department. Blake and his remaining loyal officers were on edge, feeling the pressure from both the community and the impending FBI investigation. Rumors spread like wildfire, and many officers began to question their loyalty to a system that was unraveling before their eyes. Blake, desperate to cling to power, knew he had to act swiftly. He convened a secret meeting with his remaining officers, attempting to rally their spirits. "We can't let them take control," he said, his voice filled with desperation. "We need to show them that we are still in charge. We can't let this movement gain any more traction." But within the ranks, doubt began to fester. Some officers were beginning to question Blake's leadership, and whispers of discontent circulated among them. The cracks in their facade were starting to show, and the fear that had once kept them united was now working against them. Back in the community, Jordan and his coalition set their sights on the future. They organized a town hall meeting, inviting residents to share their thoughts on the proposed reforms. The turnout was overwhelming, with members of the community eager to voice their opinions and contribute to the conversation. As the meeting unfolded, Jordan listened intently to the diversity of perspectives. One resident spoke about the need for mental health resources for officers, while another emphasized the importance of youth programs to build trust between the police and the community. Each voice added a layer of complexity to their mission, enriching the conversation and strengthening their resolve. In that moment, Jordan realized the true power of community. They were no longer just individuals fighting against a corrupt system. They were a collective force, ready to reshape the narrative of Millbrook. The fight for justice had sparked a movement, and together they were determined to see it through. As the meeting concluded, Jordan looked around the room, feeling a sense of hope wash over him. The community was coming together in ways he had never imagined, and he knew they could create the change they sought. The road ahead would not be easy, but with each step, they were building a future where justice reigned. United in purpose, the people of Millbrook were ready to reclaim their town and ensure that the darkness of corruption would never return again.